Welcome back to Speak and Feel English, the podcast where we explore how to communicate with clarity, confidence, and emotional intelligence. I'm Mia, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Ethan. Today's topic is something every English learner struggles with at some point: the best way to use new words in real life. Not just memorizing them, not just recognizing them in a book, but actually using them naturally when you speak.
Absolutely, Mia. This is one of those topics where people feel stuck for years. They know hundreds, sometimes thousands of words, but when it's time to speak, they fall back on the same basic vocabulary. The gap between knowing a word and using a word confidently is much bigger than most learners realize.
That gap often exists because vocabulary learning is treated like a storage activity instead of a skill. People collect words the way you collect files on a computer, but they never open them, never interact with them, and never practice using them in real situations.
Exactly. And one of the biggest mistakes learners make is trying to use too many new words at once. They think, I learned 10 new words today, so I must use all 10 in conversation. That usually leads to hesitation, awkward pauses, or sentences that sound forced and unnatural.
Which is why I always say real life usage starts with intention, not pressure. When you learn a new word, the first question should not be, how can I show this off? But where does this word naturally belong in my life? Every word has a context, an emotional tone, and a frequency of use.
That's such an important point. For example, if someone learns a sophisticated word like meticulous, they should first observe how native speakers use it. Is it used in casual conversation? Is it more common in professional settings? Is it usually positive, critical, or neutral?
And observation is step one before production. Learners often skip that step. They memorize the definition and jump straight into speaking, which is like learning the rules of driving without watching traffic first.
Another problem is that many learners treat vocabulary as isolated units. They learn a word alone without the sentence patterns that come with it. But in real life, words rarely travel alone. They come with collocations, tone, and rhythm.
Yes, and this is where listening becomes more powerful than memorization. When you hear a word repeatedly in real conversations, podcasts, interviews, or shows, your brain starts understanding not just what the word means, but how it behaves.
And behavior matters. Some words are formal, some are emotional, some are conversational fillers, and some are strong opinion words. Using the wrong word in the wrong situation doesn't just sound strange, it can change how people perceive you.
Which leads to confidence. Many learners avoid using new words because they're afraid of making mistakes or sounding unnatural. But confidence doesn't come from perfection, it comes from controlled practice.
I always recommend starting small. Choose one new word, just one, and decide to use it in one specific situation that day. Maybe in a sentence you speak out loud to yourself, or in a short conversation, or even in a voice note.
That's such a practical strategy. And when learners do that, something interesting happens. The word stops being new and starts feeling familiar. Familiarity is what turns passive vocabulary into active vocabulary.
And once a word becomes active, it becomes part of your identity as a speaker. You no longer think about it consciously, it just appears when needed.
So in this conversation, we're going to break down how to move words from memory to muscle, from understanding to effortless use, and from fear to confidence. We'll talk about mindset, techniques, mistakes to avoid, and realistic practice methods that actually work in real life.
And most importantly, we'll focus on making your English sound natural, not complicated. Because real fluency is not about using big words. It's about using the right words at the right time with the right feeling.
One of the most effective ways to use new words in real life is to emotionally connect with them. A word without emotion rarely stays with us. But when a word is tied to a personal experience, it becomes memorable and usable.
That's true. Think about how children learn language. They don't memorize definitions, they learn words through situations, reactions, and feelings. Adults often forget that emotional learning still works, even at an advanced level.
So when you learn a new word, instead of writing a generic sentence, ask yourself, when have I felt this? Or when could this describe my life? That personal link creates depth.
Another powerful technique is sentence expansion. Many learners create short, simple sentences with new words, but real-life English uses layered sentences. When you expand your sentence naturally, the word starts feeling more realistic.
For example, instead of saying, I was anxious, you might say, I felt anxious before the meeting because I wasn't sure how my ideas would be received. Now the word lives inside a real thought.
Exactly, and that also trains your brain to think in English rather than translate. Translation is one of the biggest barriers to using new vocabulary smoothly.
Yes, because when you translate, you pause, and that pause creates hesitation. Fluent speakers don't search for words, they follow thought patterns. Vocabulary follows thought, not the other way around.
That's why role-based practice works so well. If you imagine yourself in a specific role, employee, friend, presenter, interviewer, you automatically access the type of vocabulary that fits that role.
And this helps learners avoid using words in inappropriate situations. Some words are technically correct, but socially incorrect. Real-life usage depends heavily on social awareness.
Another underrated strategy is repetition across days, not hours. Using a word once is not enough. Using it on different days in slightly different contexts strengthens recall and flexibility.
And flexibility is key. You don't want to memorize one fixed sentence. You want to adapt the word to different ideas. That's how it becomes yours.
Learners should also pay attention to how native speakers soften or strengthen words. Real-life English is full of nuance. Words change meaning based on tone, speed, and surrounding language.
Which brings us to listening again. Listening is not passive, it's active pattern recognition. When you listen with curiosity, your brain stores usable templates.
And once those templates are stored, speaking becomes less effortful and more instinctive.
Let's talk about mistakes, because mistakes are actually part of the process of using new words. Many learners see mistakes as failure, but mistakes are feedback.
Yes, and avoiding mistakes often leads to stagnation. If you only use words you're already comfortable with, your vocabulary never grows in real life.
A common mistake is overusing a new word once you feel confident with it. Suddenly, the word appears in every sentence, even when it doesn't belong.
That's a natural phase, and it's okay, as long as learners become aware of it. Balance comes with exposure and feedback.
Another issue is copying advanced vocabulary without understanding tone. Some words sound confident. Others can sound aggressive, arrogant, or emotionally distant if used incorrectly.
Which is why feedback matters. Speaking with real people, recording yourself, or even replaying your own voice can help you notice what sounds natural and what doesn't.
Self-awareness is a powerful teacher. When learners hear themselves, they often realize that the word choice doesn't match their intention.
And intention is everything in communication. Words are tools. The goal is not to impress, but to express.
Exactly. Real-life English rewards clarity more than complexity. A well-used simple word is better than a poorly used advanced one.
That's why confidence grows when learners focus on effectiveness rather than vocabulary size.
One habit that transforms vocabulary usage is daily verbal output. Even 5 minutes of speaking out loud can change everything.
Yes, silence kills vocabulary. Words need movement, they need sound, they need repetition in real conditions.
Talking to yourself is not strange, it's strategic. When you speak alone, you remove social pressure and focus purely on expression.
And when you combine that with reflection, you accelerate progress. Ask yourself what worked and what felt forced.
Another strategy is storytelling. When you tell stories, words appear naturally. Stories create structure and emotion, which vocabulary thrives on.
And storytelling mirrors real conversation. Most real-life communication is storytelling in different forms.
That's why learners who practice storytelling often sound more fluent, even with limited vocabulary.
Because fluency is flow, not perfection.
So, when we look at the bigger picture, using new words in real life is not about memorizing more, it's about using fewer words more deeply.
It's about patience, exposure, emotional connection, and intentional practice.